Good evening, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. I am bringing you some TIFF reviews. This is a little bit long overdue because I went to TIFF quite a while ago and I never put all my reviews or all my thoughts out for the movies I've seen. But after the Aftersun trailer dropped today, I got motivated to make this video and to share my thoughts with y'all of what I thought about the movies. But before we move on, I would really appreciate it if you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. It would be great help and would let me know that you are liking the content I'm putting out. So yes, if you feel like doing so, please do. And without further ado, let's get on to the movies. So I'm doing this order going from the movies I like the least to movies I like the most out of TIFF, and those were 9 movies, so keep that in mind. The movie I liked the least at TIFF was Empire of Light. This was a really disappointing one for me because I really wanted this movie to be great. I was super hyped up by the trailer. I did a trailer reaction for it, and it's directed by Sam Mendes, who was an acclaimed director, directed American Beauty, Skyfall in 1917, among other movies, and it stars Olivia Colman. It had a lot of the right elements for me. And where I think this movie really fell flat is in the screenplay area. It's about Olivia Colman's character who has some mental health issues, and she works at the cinema and she develops a romance with Michael Ward's character. And thematically, the movie is trying to juggle basically a love for movies with racism and mental health. And it has, all these things kind of bubbling, but it really meanders and goes nowhere with them. By the end, it just feels like I just watched something that I didn't need to see. It just wasn't fulfilling at all. I don't think the screenplay like really achieved like the climax it wanted me to feel. Even though the final scene is beautiful, and even though the score is like really resonant and trying to make you feel, I just didn't connect with this movie at all. And it's mostly a screenplay problem. I thought the high points of this movie were Olivia Colman and the lead role, who was obviously fantastic. Cinematography by Roger Deakins was as solid as ever, and then the score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross was top notch. So I would say some of the technical categories, the production design as well, and Olivia Colman and Michael Ward as well in the lead roles were the high points. But Sam Mendes' script, which was the first one he's written by himself, just really didn't live up to my expectations. And for that reason, I gave the movie a 5 out of 10. Moving on to the next least favorite movie, it's Causeway. And I didn't dislike this movie. I didn't think it was a bad movie. Empire of Light is really the only movie I saw which I would say is like overall like net negative. I thought Causeway, it's an A24 movie. It's quiet. It stars Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. And it's about a subject matter that's, very serious, and it's not trying to overplay it and dramatize it, which I think is a good thing. And Jennifer Lawrence comes back from war with a brain injury, and she's trying to basically recover, and she's struggling with her perception of her home and where she thinks she belongs. It's kind of the experience of a veteran who doesn't feel comfortable going back home. And I think the movie, has some really beautiful things about it. I really liked the relationship that Jennifer Lawrence character develops with Brian Tyree Henry, who is a mechanic that she meets. The movie is really all about that relationship. It's very understated, it's very quiet, and it's basically about two broken people kind of coming together and, sharing their brokenness. But ultimately, I thought the movie just didn't have enough subject, didn't have like enough to really enrapture me. It was very simple, which can be good at times, and I'll get to some other movies that had simple premises that were executed really well. But this movie just like it didn't really grab me, it didn't really move me, it didn't really shock me. I just thought it was a watchable drama, but nothing more than that. I thought the performances were really good, especially Brian Tyree Henry, but I don't see this being an Oscar player at all. So I am giving this a 6 out of 10. Then we got The Sun. The Sun was a really controversial movie at TIFF. A lot of people hated this, and a few people really, really liked this. And I fell somewhere in between, really, because I think overall it has good elements. Some of the performances I think are really good, despite what some people are saying. I think Hugh Jackman is excellent in the lead role, and I think Vanessa Kirby is very good. I think Laura Dern is okay. I do agree with what people are saying. Unfortunately, Seth MacGrath didn't quite live up to the billing, and he plays an important role in this movie. Basically, Hugh Jackman plays the father, and Seth MacGrath plays a depressed son who is going through the motions of depression. And Hugh Jackman and Laura Dern, who is the mother, are trying to figure out what's going on with him. And I don't know whether it was the direction of Florian Seller, the way he directed this kid, or just like his inexperience, but there just wasn't a lot of depth to the way he was portraying his depression, and it just didn't really click with me, or I think with the majority of the audience. So the movie lost a lot of points there, I think, because it's such a pivotal like part of the movie. It is really about, well, it's about the father's relationship to the son and his struggles, but the son is like a titular character, right? So I think that's where the movie falls flat. There's also some issues with the screenplay. A lot of people are saying, it's not an accurate representation of mental health. I don't have a very close experience to me with somebody who's suffered like from really severe mental health issues, but I can definitely see that. And one of the things that I definitely do agree with is the end of the movie is a little bit emotionally sadistic. It's really trying to evoke like a reaction from the audience, but it's doing so in a kind of unnecessarily manipulative way. And I think that the ending just really didn't click for me. Even though I do think the movie has some scenes that are emotionally resonant. Like I definitely felt like tearing up in a few scenes. And overall, it's an effective drama. I just think because of its treatment of mental health, Seth MacGrath's iffy performance, and overall the screenplay just trying to manipulate that final scene for the audience, it just didn't quite fully work for me. So I'm giving this a 7 out of 10. Overall, a solid movie, but I can definitely see where the division's coming from. Then we have Women Talking, and I am gonna reserve a right to re-review this movie because out of all the screenings at TIFF, I was pretty much laser focused on every single movie I saw, and for some strange reason, when I saw Women Talking, I feel like I zoned off. Like I feel like I was just not on the wavelength of the movie for whatever reason. I might have just been really, really tired, and I think because the movie is very talky, it just kind of lost me. But I do think there's some great elements here. The performances are excellent. Performances are top notch, and some of the dialogue's very good. But I'm gonna keep my review for this one short because I definitely don't think like I should be giving this a score at this point, just because I was not like in my five senses when I watched this. I will say though, the cinematography and the lighting, what people have been saying about it being like really dark and dim, is I completely related to it, and I do not like the lighting in this movie at all. I actively hate it actually. So maybe on a second viewing, I can see past the lighting and I can maybe get more attached to the movie. But as of now, I don't really like love this movie. I'll have to rewatch it. But yeah, take that as you will. Then we have Triangle of Sadness, and this is where it gets good. This is where it gets like good, I think, where I like overall like these movies quite a bit. And Triangle of Sadness was a really fun movie, just like a blast to watch with an audience, like an absolute great pick to watch at TIFF. Everybody loved the movie. I was at the premiere screening for the public, and there was laughing, there was clapping, there was like righteous energy throughout the entire film. And yeah, just a blast to watch. I don't know if you've probably seen the trailer, directed by Ruben Ostlund and starring, mostly relatively unknown people, but Woody Harrelson's in the movie. It's a very fun watch. It's a very fun watch. I would recommend it. I think where I found some issues with this movie is at the length. It's like 2 hours and 30 minutes long, and it could have been like 50 minutes shorter than that. That's probably a bad indictment. Like hearing that from me probably looks bad, but I think it's still funny. It's still effective. I just would have loved to see it cut down, like not 50 minutes, because I think there's some room for the director to play with, but maybe like 20 minutes shorter. It just dragged a lot at the end, and I felt myself liking the movie less and less in the like last like 20 to 30 minutes. So I think that takes the movie down a couple notches. But overall, like I laughed a ton, and I was with a friend who also laughed like a lot in this movie. So I would say this is an enjoyable ride. Definitely go check it out. I'd give this a solid 8 out of 10. Then we have the People's Choice winner and my number 4 favorite movie of the festival, which is The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Michelle Williams and Paul Dano, among other people, and Gabrielle Labelle in the basically fake Spielberg role, Sammy Fabelman. This one was an interesting one for me because I had come out of not really liking West Side Story that much, and I went into this movie a little bit skeptical, but really wanting to like what Spielberg had to offer here. And when the movie started, there were some elements that I liked. There was some nostalgia that I liked, but overall, something about it felt like really like forced or like fake-ish to me. It just seemed like really plasticky for some reason, and the acting seemed a little bit off. I don't know what it was, but at the beginning I was like, okay, like I don't know like how I feel about this. I was dozing off like a tiny bit, and then the movie hits a middle point, and I'm not gonna reveal what that is. And then after it does, it really, really picked up for me. And I think I started to realize what Spielberg was going for with this movie. Like, it's this movie's not going for like realism at all. I don't think it's being very like it's being like kind of meta. It wants to be a movie about him loving movies. Like, maybe it doesn't sound right when I'm saying it, but it's basically less realistic than you would expect, and the acting kind of plays into that. So the acting is kind of goes along with the wavelength of the movie, and it took me a while until I hopped onto that wavelength. Once I was there, once I was in where Spielberg wanted me to be at, I rode that wave like really hard in the second half. Loved the second half of the movie. I thought it was magically directed with some great moments, like great flourishes, just like a la Spielberg, beautiful, magical, memorable, so many good things about it. People have talked about the final shot. The final shot is really great. Probably the best final like frame that I've seen out of the festival. But yeah, I mean, I ultimately I ended up really liking this movie. The first half, had me like questioning myself. The second half, really loved it. So yeah, I think this movie's pretty solid, pretty great actually. And I think for Oscar chances, Michelle Williams seems like she's gonna be campaign lead now. I don't know whether she's gonna be win competitive, but I can see a nomination. I can also see her missing out, honestly, because I didn't particularly think she was like that amazing. But yeah, I could see a nomination for her. Why not? And then the other acting noms, John Hirsch might happen. He has a short scene that kind of steals the show. And then Paul Dano has more screen time, but it's a little bit more quiet. So it's kind of between those two, like I said in my previous predictions. But yes, that's what I see happening for acting. I think Spielberg, director, screenplay, cinematography, production design, all that stuff can go with it. So keep that in mind. The Fablemans, really good movie, and I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Then let's get into the ones I love, the movies I loved out of TIFF. And starting us off with my third favorite movie of the festival, it's Glass Onion. This is Ryan Johnson's follow up to Knives Out, and it brings back Daniel Craig as Detective Benoit Blanc with a whole new squad of people to snoop around with. This one was a blast. I saw this in the morning in my second day of TIFF, and I just had such a fun ride watching this. It has so many great moments, so many great laughs. It kind of makes fun of the murder mystery genre while also paying homage to it. It's just so like kooky and fun, and the screenplay is so creative, and just the way he manipulates audience expectations, what we're seeing, what we're not seeing, um, and the way the story kind of flips on itself at a certain point in the movie. It's just remarkable screenwriting. Like I love the screenplay and I love this movie, and I think it definitely deserves to be at least in those two categories at the Oscars. Janelle Monáe has been talked about as a supporting actress. I thought she was very good in it. I honestly would say though, my favorite performance out of the movie was Daniel Craig. He was just so funny in it. Like, and he's such an underrated talent. I think people just take it for granted. But if I was a voter, if I could just like make this happen, I would definitely vote for him as a supporting actor in this movie. So good. Love Daniel Craig. I mean, excellent. And I would, put this movie in picture and screenplay as well, obviously. Just an overall, like, really fun ride. And, I don't want to spoil the mystery at all, so I'm going to keep this brief. But yeah, just go in as blind as possible and enjoy the ride. I mean, that's all I can say. It's great. So I gave this movie ultimately a 9 out of 10. So here I am moving on to my two favorite movies out of TIFF. And these movies are kind of tied in a way. They're kind of tied. I'm gonna put them both at number one because I can't really decide between them. I think they're extremely different movies, but they do share one similarity that I can think of off the top of my head. And it's, well, there's multiple, but the one is that it's both A24 movies. And since I've talked about The Whale before, let me just talk about that right now first. The Whale, excellent movie. Brendan Fraser completely like shattered my heart. I mean, his performance makes me want to tear up even now, like just remembering what I felt like watching him. And I was crying like a crazy person during that screening. I needed some like medical attention to help me stop crying that much. And yeah, it just completely broke me. That movie just like, I don't know, like I think it was the score, the performances, the direction, just a combination of a bunch of factors, and just the fact that I resonated with Charlie, who was the main character of the movie. Just it swept me up, and that's all I can say about it. So I gave The Whale, like I said in the review for it, which you can check out right above, a 10 out of 10. And my co-number one movie is Aftersun, which was a movie I had been really looking forward to up to the fest, and I will now say that I absolutely loved it. Aftersun follows a father and a daughter who are going on a holiday, and it's basically mixing in a bunch of camcorder footage from that holiday with normal footage, and it's in some ways reminiscing this holiday. The movie is a slice of life kind of thing, and it's not really gonna be like for everybody, I don't think. But if you kind of reflect on the movie and understand the specificity of what it's going for, and you can resonate with that, like it's so powerful. And I just gotta say, like, it's one of the most richly layered things I've seen. The way it's constructed, the symbolism throughout the movie with the colors, it's just so beautiful to look at, and it's so intricate in the way it's made and the way everything's framed and the way that the camera moves. Just everything about it like really enraptured me, and by the end I was a little bit of a mess when the movie ended. I wasn't actively crying and like like with like snot and everything like in The Whale, because this is a much quieter movie, but it really shook me. Like the ending was so striking to me, the way everything was built up. And then I had a long conversation with my friend after the movie ended, and I think we both agreed that the movie was so profound and so powerful and so worth talking about, which is a really good sign of a great movie, is when you can talk about it for hours and days after it's over. This is the kind of movie I just want to talk about forever and watch again forever. So because it's so rich. So I really can't recommend this enough. I thought both the leads were so good in this movie. Like Paul Mescal was quietly chilling. Frankie Corio was so wonderful and natural and great, and it just seemed like such a genuine performance. Charlotte Wells, who directed this movie, is a young director. She absolutely knocked it out of the park with her debut. Just beautiful. The way she directed the actors, the way she framed this whole thing, the way she like wrote it and crossed the footage between the camcorder and the real footage, and Jesus, and that ending. Oh my God, this year has just been. TIFF was just the place for endings. I think the ending to the Fabelmans, the ending to the Whale, and the ending to Aftersun are all kind of like all timer endings for me. I mean, Jesus, so good. Yeah, I'm getting emotional just thinking about the movie. So yeah, I can't recommend watching this enough. I mean, please check this out. Please give this movie a chance. Go support it in theaters. I want more of these movies to come out, and I think after you see it, hopefully you like it as much as I do. If you don't, that's okay. But this movie is just it just really struck a chord with me, and I really want to share it with you guys. So I gave this movie a 10 out of 10, just like The Whale. And yeah, those are my two favorite movies from TIFF. So that wraps up my TIFF wrap up, I guess. I'm sorry for putting this out so late, but I hope that a lot of people can still see this and get my reactions. And if you feel like sharing, your opinions on these movies or your thoughts or your expectations, please, share them in the comments below. I'd love to interact with you guys. If you have any questions about them, I'd love to share. So yeah, please feel free. And thank you for watching this video. Really appreciate it. And as always, peace.